Many have hailed the movie as a success, and I understand why. As our chapter explains in our statement, which I'll read in a minute, the film does a number of things effectively. A lot of these proponents of the project take Walsh at his word when he says that he invited so-called prominent feminists and speculate that maybe he just doesn't know about actual radical feminists who might be inclined to agree with him about gender identity. That is wrong. Walsh knows exactly where to find the radical feminists. I know this because when my book was published in November 2021, the book publicist reached out to both Walsh and the Daily Wire several times, requesting interviews. Those requests went unanswered. Several months later, I DM'd Walsh on Twitter, no response. At one point, though, on Twitter, he engaged with me. I told him that I'd like to go on his show to talk, and he declined, stating that his podcast format does not lend itself to interviews. During our Twitter back and forth, it became abundantly clear to me that he knows who I am and that he had simply been ignoring me the entire time. More recently, he tweeted that he would be happy to work with anyone who can help take down gender ideology, and I responded, "Great, let's talk." I DM'd him again, and this time he responded to say that he was willing to talk in a public forum. I asked if he's able to get us a spot on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said he could not, and that is as far as the conversation has gone to date. As a political matter, I don't really think that Walsh is important to the fight to push back against gender ideology in the US. The reason that I think that is that the critical demographic that American radical feminists need to reach if we're going to win is mainstream liberals. Most mainstream American liberals think that gender identity is nonsense as soon as they understand what it actually is. The problem for us is that most of them have no idea what it is because the American media deliberately keeps them in the dark. I have said before that if radical feminists, lesbian rights activists, and biologists can be heard, we will win. And I continue to think that is true. No mainstream American liberal is going to be persuaded by a production in the Daily Wire featuring a Christian conservative traditionalist that contains no sane leftist voices at all. So I don't think we need men like Matt Walsh fighting these battles. However, although we don't need men like him, we're stuck with him. If I could blink my eyes and make him disappear from the scene, I would do that. But I don't have the power to do that. Walsh is going to remain on the scene. To the extent that he is going to remain on the scene then, what Americans like WDI USA need to do is figure out how to use his platform to advance our message. We know that this is not ideal, but as long as he's going to be around, I intend to make sure that he's useful.